Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. I say back because it has been a number of weeks since we have done I've been able to do a live broadcast, but I'm glad to be back here from the fortified compound in Mesa, Arizona. Should be back to a regular schedule now. Unfortunately, there was a death in my family. I had been taking care of my father-in-law. He was 95. He unfortunately passed away suddenly. And, it's been a rough few weeks, but we're getting back into things. And so I do. I appreciate the support that we've had on the show, and we're going to get right back into things over here. Hopefully, we're not on private, are we? No, I don't think so. But hopefully, people will start filing into the big broadcast. Let me know that we definitely have. It looks like we have audio. I don't think we're having an audio problem yet today. I had one earlier, but we got that taken care of. But it is August. My gosh, the month of July is just like a blur. But it is August 3rd, 2019, and I'll give this out later. I guess I can do it now. 218 632 9399, and the passcode is 2020 and the pound sign. I'll put that in the chat, so that can be copied and pasted if people come in, as we are doing the show, people come in and they can get that. So it's a 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020 with the pound sign. So let me see what we've got here. Hopefully everything is going well and will continue to go well. I will disconnect that. I'll put the headphones on when I need to. But I want to thank everyone for their continued support of the big show. Again, since I wasn't able to do a show for a number of weeks, and when I did try, it was an absolute disaster as far as tech issues. So we weren't able to do that particular show. But everything seems to be going pretty good here right now. So appreciate Don and Nelson and Eyal and of course Chris, Bill and Dan up in New Hampshire. I do appreciate that. If you want to help support the big show, it's markstevens.cells.com. And also just go to my website, markstevens.net. And now that we're getting back to a regular schedule, I do have a number of videos that I'm going to hopefully get finished this week and get up there. But big one is Anatomy of a Frivolous Argument. Look, all it really is, and I lay it all out in this short video. When somebody starts shouting frivolous argument, just ask them what the hell they mean by frivolous argument. Do you just mean that you disagree with my argument, or you think my argument has no merit? Because that's not what a frivolous argument is. A frivolous argument, it comprehends a bit more, and it's just a way of shouting down an argument. That's all it is. All it is, especially if you're dealing with a bureaucrat, the moment you hear the word frivolous, they have given up on any kind of rational discourse with you. None. They're not interested in that. That's what happens when someone starts screaming frivolous. They are not interested in a rational discourse. You cannot have one. They're telling you in plain English, "Abba fongul, I don't want to hear you. I'm right, you're wrong. There's no, it doesn't matter." Even though they admit that some of these people, that their argument has no basis. It's just not there. I do want to touch on, before I get into some of these things, somebody had recently contacted me, and there was a traffic issue that they were dealing with. And they said that they had seen some of the videos of a critic, and that the critic had pointed out where, the groundbreaking news that legal arguments don't always work in court. Wow. I mean, my gosh, a giant intellect there to point out that legal arguments don't always work in court. And that's something look, when you go to court, there's a lot of factors at play here. You're dealing with narcissists, people who think that what they say is law, and that everyone has to follow it, regardless of no evidence whatsoever to prove that they apply. And so this critic is pointing out that, yes, people that I've worked with, there have been train wrecks. I've reported it here on the big show. I have no problem doing that. And that is being proclaimed as that what I'm talking about here on the show and how I defend myself and how hundreds and hundreds of other people, thousands of other people have defended themselves successfully, that no matter how many success stories we post, it doesn't matter. Somebody lost, Marc is a scammer, it's all BS. Never showing where the argument and the position is actually incorrect. Never giving any kind of discourse or debunking where it's actually incorrect, where the facts are wrong, the logic is wrong, and the legal citation is completely off point. None of that. Just pointing, well, it loses in court. Yeah. Yes. There's a reality here. This is not some mind-blowing thing. All legal arguments have lost in court. All of them. You could say the Fourth Amendment is a fantastic tool, fantastic legal argument about illegal searches and seizures. Loses in court every day. Does that mean it's an invalid argument? No. Maybe in that situation it was an invalid. Who knows? There's a lot of factors that go into play. See, there's a reason why there are appellate courts, and that is because trial judges and appellate judges, even entire appellate panels, get it wrong. And so the Supreme Court of each state and the United States is there to settle issues, because the courts get things wrong, and they get things wrong all the time. All the time. That doesn't mean that the arguments that they are saying are invalid are invalid. Again, if it was true, there wouldn't be an appellate court. You wouldn't have motions for reconsideration. You wouldn't have a motion to reconsider en banc, so that if you have a 3-judge reviewing panel on the appellate court, let's say at the United States, if they say an argument is invalid, then the entire Court of Appeals can review to see if they were right. Is this argument valid or not? So it doesn't hold any water whatsoever to say that, well, this legal argument didn't win in court, because that doesn't give you that's not showing, it doesn't mean that the argument was wrong, especially in traffic cases where there's no, unlike in a real trial, real crime, where there's an actual discussion on the argument, and they show you where the argument may or may not be wrong. Now, their reasoning may be BS, but at least they're giving you some basis for the decision, which you don't get in traffic court. Traffic court judges are so arrogant, they don't think that they have to give a reason for their decision. A decision that affects people's lives. Okay? How arrogant do you have to be to think that your decision that affects other people's lives, you don't have to have any reason for it? I wear a black robe. I went to law school. I'm a judge. I'm a lawyer. I'm a fungul. I don't have to have a reason. Come on. That's just straight arrogance. So that holds no water. Just because somebody goes to court with an argument and it's shot down by the trial judge doesn't mean it's an invalid argument. And again, legal arguments lose in court every single day. That's not the yardstick for whether it's a valid argument. Just like the Fourth Amendment one I gave. The Fifth Amendment is a great legal tool also to use. But just because your Fifth Amendment argument was denied without explanation, that doesn't mean that it has no merit. It's just you've got some judge who disagrees with you. Okay? So this individual went into court, and he came back to me, because I had given him the same basic premise in an email. Like, just look, all legal arguments lose in court. All of them. That's not it. Please. So he went and filed what I believe was the motion to dismiss, and came back a number of weeks later saying, I used your method, and now there's a warrant for my arrest. I think I'm adding that. I think I'm adding the anger to that, though. But he's saying, I did things way you said, Marc Stevens, and I went in and I did it just like that, and now I got a friggin' warrant for my arrest. So obviously, I don't want to see things get more screwed up. I'm here to help people, not to see people get and compound the problem. We certainly do not want. I certainly don't want to compound. I'm trying to help people and make sure that things are getting better, not worse. So I'm very concerned when somebody says, I did things your way, now I got a warrant for my arrest. Well, it turns out it took me about 6 or 7 emails to actually get out what the purpose of the motion of the warrant was. And it's very similar to what happened to a phone John that we know up in Minnesota, who dealt with the psychopath Rex Stacy. And what happened to John was he was physically in the courtroom, and the judge issued a warrant for his arrest for a non-appearance, had him arrested by a deputy, a bailiff, who knew he was there, knew it was a bogus warrant. I'm just doing my job. Just doing my job. So that's what happened here. He didn't show up. He thought that just filing the motion, you didn't have to appear. And I'll say it again. If you file the motion to dismiss, you still have to appear until the judge issues an order vacating that appearance date. You got to go. It's under threat, duress, and coercion, because guess what? They'll issue a warrant. And now the issue has escalated. If you're in a place like California, you get an added criminal charge of failure to appear. And you're not like, wait, look, I'm going to get into this in a second. It's not like we are rich politicians and their friends. Okay, we'll talk about Jeffrey Epstein in a few minutes. The rules do apply to us. They don't apply to the rich and the useful idiots of the rich, meaning the government, the tools, the useful idiots. The bailiff in the situation in Minnesota that I was just mentioning, I'm just doing my job. I got to mention this too. The judge has absolute civil immunity. There's not a thing John can do to him to hold him accountable for a bogus warrant. And it's a bogus warrant. You can't just blame the fact that I'm an anarchist. The man was standing in court and the judge issued a warrant for his arrest. It's like what happened with Peer Pan, that piece of garbage up in Scottsdale. Mike was in the courtroom and issued a default judgment that Mike never was there. So you could turn around and say, just an anarchist. It's completely irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant to the facts. It's got nothing to do with it. Oh, Marc Stevens just a scammer. The judge recognized it right away and knew it. Yeah, no, there is no legal or moral, ethical justification for issuing a warrant for someone's arrest for failure to appear when they are in the court. And even though the judge is completely civilly immune in practice, not legally, but in practice, the bailiff is not. And that's something that for any police officer who's executing warrants or bailiffs or whatnot, if you execute a bogus warrant on behalf of a judge, you can be held accountable, even in practice. The judge can't. You can't just turn around and excuse, but the judge ordered me to do it. No, you are civilly and personally liable for a bogus warrant. If you know and you're in the court and you see the guy there and you still execute the warrant, useful idiot. Useful idiot. And so through some of the other emails and what he was describing to me, like overstand instead of saying understand. This is not how I talk. That's not how I do things. So if somebody goes to court and gets in trouble, if you're going to at least privately or publicly say it's because of me, at least please get it factually accurate, that it's something that I actually work on, it's something that I advocate, something that I do before saying something like that. So the warrant being issued is strictly on his shoulders because he didn't show up. So if you have a court date and you file a motion to dismiss, you got to show up unless you get an order from the judge or there's something from the clerk vacating that appearance date. Otherwise, you have to go. Not because you're morally obligated or even that you're illegally obligated, because they will escalate this and issue a warrant for your arrest. So let's please keep that in mind. Jameson is saying 16 tickets and 16 drop tickets. That's my 10 years with Marc's help. Hey, well, I appreciate it. I'm glad I'm able to help there. as well as getting tax agents to back off. Yeah, I think that was a property tax one too. So, hey, I appreciate that, Jameson. Let's see what we got going on over here. Okay, we can get the number. Now I can give the number out since we're all filing in. Someone saying, Deaf Bread, I won my first ticket via Marc's method. Well, very good. I appreciate that. And I do have about 4 more success stories that I need to post, but I haven't been home. I mean, almost for the entire month of July, I wasn't home. So I'm going to start. I'll probably put all the success stories into one new video and post that. And so look for that. We'll get that. I have to. This is something that absolutely should not leave the. This story should not get out of the news cycle. I know they're not talking about it now because here you have this enormous thing, all this information about Jeffrey Epstein, and he was arrested again, thank goodness, and he was denied bail. That Jeffrey Epstein, of course, I'm going to talk about it practically every single show, not because I think something is going to get done about it, because I don't. None of the politicians and lawyers that are connected, and Prince Edward, I think, who has been associated with Epstein, has been on his plane dozens of times and has been to his island, known sex trafficker, solid evidence against this man. And because Trump makes some racist statements, it just disappears. It should be front page news. It should be every single news show at least mentioning it about this. You've got a damn Pizzagate unfolding right in front of our eyes, and it's not on the front page every single day. And I talk about this because it goes to the ruling class and how the rules don't apply. They just don't apply to billionaires and multimillionaires and their tools, people in government. Just don't apply. So it's shocking that he is not, a judge is actually, doing some of the right thing. I personally, look, I think Jeffrey Epstein, despite all the evidence that they have uncovered at his home, I don't think he's going to make it to trial. He's probably going to wind up dead in a cell. He'll commit suicide. And that'll be the end of the story. Now, I don't know, and I'm speculating. I'm just reporting what I believe is speculation. That it's believed, again, speculation, that the background for his money, because it's like people don't understand. It's like media. They can't find how he made so much money. But someone reported, a number of places reported. Again, this could be just BS. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't seen the evidence, so I'm just going to speculate and throw this out there that he is a CIA asset and that he works with the CIA. Part of his job is to compromise high-level government officials. Again, pure speculation at this point because I haven't seen any proof of that. But what we do know is that he got a sweetheart deal from the now another Trump appointee, Alexander Acosta, who was the U.S. attorney who oversaw and allowed the sweetheart deal for Epstein not to do prison time, that they knocked it down. I think there was several dozen women who had corroborating stories regarding sex trafficking and being raped as children. And they knocked it down to misdemeanor. Knocked it down. No prison time. And then he becomes the Secretary of Labor in the Trump administration. And, of course, Trump is associated as one of the accused parties. What we don't know, what they have not been able to reveal, and this is critical, there were a few dozen co-conspirators. I don't know the names. Could be Trump. Then you've got Alan Dershowitz, who went from, I never had any contact with any of these underage girls. I never had this and that. Well, I did have a massage. Oh, the man lied about it. Well, why would you lie about it? Oh, because he's guilty. So we don't know who these other unindicted co-conspirators are. I would bet the farm. I mean, would we really be surprised if it was Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Alan Dershowitz, and this so-called prince? Would we really be surprised if they're some of the unindicted co-conspirators that were given immunity? Immunity. You ever hear about immunity in a marijuana charge in Maryvale or, Baltimore? Really? Immunity for a marijuana charge? Child rape and child sex trafficking. They gave them immunity. We don't even know their names. Why would you give them immunity? Why would you give somebody accused of child rape? Because again, this all goes back to these sick individuals who are in government. And I'll always bring it up because it's always relevant. If you doubt that this is true, look at the Jimmy Savile case. Unfortunately, that piece of garbage is dead. And look at the Marc Dutroux affair. Look it up. Go to YouTube. Go on. Do a good look. I'll have to get this in the show notes. The Dutroux affair. Over 100,000 people in Belgium took to the streets to protest the fact that there were government agents, judges, and prosecutors actively covering it up. Why? Because they got the goods. We know the CIA does that. So Jeffrey here is saying Jeffrey Epstein's long shot bid to get bail for child sex trafficking case just got tougher because of a new appeals court decision. The long shot effort by Jeffrey Epstein, long shot. The guy's worth hundreds of millions, if not billions, still. Jeffrey Epstein, an accused sex trafficker. Accused? No, he's convicted. Well, what is it with these mainstream people? Did they always say had sex with an underage girl? No, it's child rape. He's not an accused sex trafficker anymore. He's a convicted sex trafficker. By promising to personally pay for security to monitor him, got even tougher with a federal appeals court decision that bars such cushy arrangements in most cases. Well, there's some good news from the court. The decision came in a criminal case unrelated to the former friend of Presidents Donald Trump and Bill Clinton. Epstein's lawyers had suggested to the judge that he could be released into effective house release at his massive Manhattan townhouse, where he and visitors could be closely monitored round the clock by private security guards. Do you think you'd get that if you and I? You think it would even be an option that it only foreclosed on by a recent Court of Appeals case? Do you think that we could get in a traffic case, say driving on a suspended license, that you get house arrest? No. It's not. They'd laugh. They'd laugh. The ruling in a second Court of Appeals expressly bars a two-tier bail system in which wealthy defendants are released to self-funded private jails where defendants of lesser means are detained pending trial. Wow. So kudos on the Court of Appeals for doing something right. You got to give credit where credit is due. That was a good thing. And at least one time, it's being enforced. They could appeal it, of course. Such a two-tiered system would foster inequity and unequal treatment in favor of a very small cohort of criminal defendants who are extremely wealthy. Wow. That is I am duly impressed. It could be overturned, but we'll have to wait and see. Wow. But the ruling came a week after Epstein filed his own appeal to the Second Circuit after a Manhattan federal judge denied his request to be released on bail of upwards of $100 million. Epstein's lawyers had told the judge he would be willing to pay for security. Excuse me. Yeah. He's currently being held in federal jail in Lower Manhattan, where he was found mysteriously injured last week and later placed on suicide watch. I had not read that particular part. Depending on the dirt that this guy has on these politicians, no, he's not going to make it to trial. The appeals panel in the other case said that if a similarly situated defendant of lesser means would be detained, a wealthy defendant cannot avoid detention by relying on his personal funds to pay for private detention. Wow. But the panel said there are some circumstances in which the Bail Reform Act allows a judge to release a defendant pending trial with a condition that includes the defendant paying for private armed security guards to monitor him. Such condition may be appropriate where the defendant is deemed to be a flight risk primarily because of his wealth. In other words, a defendant may be released on such a condition only where, but for his wealth, he would not have been detained. And it's great because in the picture, you can, in the article, I'll link, there's an older video with Trump and Epstein. So yeah, they were friends. There's no, and he's actually publicly said it. Again, Donald Trump, serial liar. I mean, you can't. That's why somebody left a comment recently about how they like the show, but they also love Donald Trump. I can't possibly wrap my mind around how somebody, I don't actually get how that's possible, but yeah, Al is saying, in my opinion, the government is involved in slave trading and trafficking people. Any major convictions would expose the whole mess. And here we're seeing, though, it would, you see some of the mess unraveling where it's coming out because they have logs of his flight, his and people who have been to his island. And then Trump saying, some of them even on the younger side. Well, yeah, Trump, of course, accused of raping a child, and because of death threats, they withdrew their complaint. So all this stuff that's going on too with the Mueller report and Mueller coming out and testifying that Trump could be indicted for obstruction after he leaves office. None of that's going to happen. All that just distracts away from something that is systemic. Child trafficking. And what department of the federal government oversaw sex trafficking? Secretary of Labor, Alexander Acosta. And he was confirmed anyway. This isn't Republican, Democrat. This is the whole damn system is just there to keep the wealthy, the super wealthy in power. Useful idiots. It comes out in the hearings that he gave this sweetheart deal to a sex trafficker and gave immunity to co-conspirators. They still approved him. This isn't just one or two people. This is the system. People like to sit there and complain about Moscow Mitch and think that Moscow Mitch, well, it's Moscow Mitch. He's blocking all these bills at the pleasure of the Senate. They could vote him out as Senate Majority Leader tomorrow. They don't, because it's not just him. It's all of them. Who knows the kind of filth Epstein could have on them? Who knows the kind of deeds the Russians can have on these people? It's the ruling class that is the problem, that they are able to be in a position with no accountability. Zero. I mean, a good question would be, can an impeached president, but not a removed president, run for office run for office again? Can you actually be qualified to run for office if you've been impeached? I would think that if you have been impeached but not convicted, that should keep you off the ballot. I don't know. I don't think it matters. Because bottom line, it doesn't matter who's in charge. The ring of power is the problem. To have unaccountable control over others is the problem. Trump is a system. He's a symptom. And not a damn thing is going to be done about it. The man is right. He could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and not lose a vote. And nobody would prosecute him for it. So forget about the fact that he would not lose a vote. Nobody would prosecute him for it. Nobody would hold him accountable. That's not what they're supposed to do. That's not what they do. It's not what they do. So I'm not holding my breath there. And I'm certainly not thinking any of those 20 some odd co-conspirators in the sex trafficking, that anything is going to be done about that. And Trump, this is big surprise. I'm sure he doesn't need a job anymore, but Alexander Acosta, this is in the time, this is a couple of weeks ago. He did resign amid pressure from Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking case. So Labor Secretary Alexander Acosta says he will resign amid controversy over the way he handled a sex crimes case against wealthy businessman Jeffrey Epstein a decade ago when he was U.S. Attorney to Southern Florida. Is anything going to be done? No, he's resigned. He might go to a luxurious, carefree retirement. The issue resurfaces when a politically connected Epstein, whose friends have included President Trump and former President Bill Clinton, was arrested on sex trafficking charges on July 6th. Leading Democratic presidential candidates, including Joe Biden and Senator Elizabeth Warren, as well as House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, have demanded that Acosta quit. Well, you could look at Joe Biden and certainly Pelosi and see what kind of conflicts of interest they have voting on bills that are making them rich. They're all a bunch of criminals. Even if we take that out, as I said so many times on the show, why I'm an anarchist. They're just men and women forcing us to pay them. That's it. So it's the ruling class that's the problem. So as long as we are accepting enough people, keep them in power and enable the ruling class, we're going to keep getting things like this. It's just going to keep happening. But we got a long road ahead of us. Long. I mean, it's first, people have to know. And not everybody is going to care. I mean, even when you confront people with how dishonest and how corrupt and vile someone like Donald Trump is, they're all corrupt. Well, then what the hell then why don't you support the other side? Why are you so adamantly against the other side? If they're all vile and corrupt, why do you latch on to this one where he could do no wrong? Why are they so vile? Why do you hate them so much? If they're all so, it doesn't make, none of it makes any kind of sense. If they're all vile, corrupt, why do you latch on to this one? What's the difference? It doesn't matter who you vote for. They're all vile, corrupt. So it doesn't matter. But why pick a favorite? I don't understand that. I don't get that. I don't get that at all. I know the number here is 218-632-9399. 218-632-9399. With the passcode is 2020 and the pound sign. So I'm really surprised. Okay. Well, I thought we'd have more calls, but all right. Well, I am back for the first time in a few weeks, so I kind of understand that. But maybe I'll just finish on this. People have to know. There are people out there still that will understand reason and the facts, and maybe change their behavior toward, based on that. Those people, a lot of us still exist like that out there. So we have to actually show these people and expose them for what they are. There's no reforming it other than to get rid of the violent support. So if you want to call that a reform, well, Al is saying once the government violates the natural moral order, it demonstrates that it doesn't have any authority. Well, sure, they're a criminal organization. So if there was a reform that needed to be passed, it would be to get rid of the violent nature of the support, the pay or go to jail aspect of it. But they had to be exposed. People have to have the facts. They have to be able to make that decision that they are just a group of criminals, and that it doesn't matter who you vote, unless, at least at the local level, they're saying that they are going to push to change the policy, and that they have one goal is to continually punch this policy, and to push this policy that they're going to get rid of the compulsory nature of the support. And there's no reason to even consider someone. I imagine, you'd like to see some in New Hampshire pushing that, but I haven't. I've been too out of the loop, so I haven't been around to be able to do that. Something we're going to have to start doing. But if someone at the local, like in New Hampshire, if they were going into the state, the assembly, to be pushing to get rid of the compulsory support, and like I've mentioned before, get rid of the immunity, specifically for judges and prosecutors, yeah, that's somebody you can get behind. They have no position on anything else but that. We're going to be pushing to make support voluntary, get rid of the stick, the jail and the warrants. We're going to get rid of the immunity for judges and prosecutors. Let's see. It says Epstein would not be in prison if it weren't for President Donald Trump. How the hell do you come out with that? I don't get the logic there at all. The president doesn't order people to be arrested. As much as I don't like prosecutors, the evidence against him and some prosecutors doing the right thing is what got him. It was the Southern District in New York, not in Florida. And the Southern District in New York is investigating Donald Trump. So, yeah, Epstein is in prison as a cover-up for something much worse. I got to tell you, I don't know what could be worse than I guess worse than that is bombing people. I guess worse than sex trafficking, would be bombing busloads of innocent children in the Middle East. So that I think that will qualify as worse. So yeah, okay, you got a point there. I got to give you that. I don't know if he's involved with that or not, and it hey, it might come out, and I'll have to research this if he does have a military intelligence or CIA affiliation. That would certainly make and certainly makes sense given the money and that really is the fact that he didn't go to prison. Although you think if he was CIA, he wouldn't have even had a sweetheart deal. He would have been killed before that. So I got to look into it more. Hey, I'm going to end the show here on that happy note. I would like to see if people can go to city councils and challenge these people. And you can feel free to call, the show if you're going to go, or you want to email me and ask about the questions. Pretty straightforward. Go to a city council meeting. Hey, if I did business like you guys and I forced that people in the community to give me money, strangers, would you consider me a criminal? And there's a huge crack in the facade of legitimacy. You're asking a simple question, and it exposes them. Now, whether they answer or not, it's not them you're trying to convince. Look, they're making money on the system. You're not going to change their mind. It's like certain pseudo-anarchists. They're making so much money promoting racism and anti-immigration and pro-Trump, making so much money. It doesn't. They're just saying whatever they got to make the money. So even if privately they may believe, they're not going to stop. But it's the audience, it's the people, the victims like you and I. The victims are the ones that need to hear that question and see how they respond. Doesn't matter how the city council responds. They're probably not as grossly corrupt as people at the federal level, but they're not our audience. All right, we'd like to convince them, but we're not going to. So ask that question. We're destroying the facade of legitimacy, and the only reform is to stop forcing people to give the money. That's the only reform that's it. So we'll talk more about that. I am back on a regular schedule. So I may change the time to later here on Saturday, but it'll still be on Saturday, and I'm going to do the Wednesday No State Project, obviously, now that we're back on a regular schedule. So that will be from 3 to 4, as usual, Pacific Standard Time. And we'll take calls on anarchy, government abuse, and defending yourself in court. And I should hopefully by that time have the new videos up. Let's see. Yeah, I don't even want to mention the name on the air, but I think somebody figured out who I was talking about. I think Miss Coco figured out who I was talking about. Yeah, so who knows what someone like that believes in private. They say whatever they have to say just to get money, and people still throw money at them. It's just absolutely beyond me. I don't get it. I guess there's money in pushing hate against non-white Europeans and with pseudoscience and pushing to get Donald Trump. And there's a lot of money in it. Okay, all right, I get it. That'll do it. So glad to be back too, guys, here in the Fortified Compound. This was the return show back August 3rd, 2019. Appreciate the support of the show. Of course, Eyal, Nelson, Don, wow, and Dan, and of course Dan and Bill up in New Hampshire, Chris in California. I'm sorry if I forgot Marc. If I've forgotten someone, I really do apologize. I appreciate the support of the show. You can help support the show at markstevens.cells.com and also at markstevens.net. Again, I will be live again on Wednesday. The regular schedule is back. So till then, baby, salud.